going on? This is Riffy. I'm going to cover the general and special senses portion, just the introductory material, so you have that to study from. So, information about your environment, whether it's internal or external, is picked up by some sensory receptor. And remember, to maintain homeostasis, you actually have to monitor both your internal working environment of your body and the external working environment. So, the state of your organs, your glands, and everything internally have to maintain homeostasis within itself, and then homeostasis has to be maintained within your environment outside of your body. Most of which sensory information is picked up by dendrites of sensory neurons, and they're the simplest type of receptor. These are basically branching tips. They're called free nerve endings, and they pick up several different types of stimuli. But sensory receptors can actually be general to just a very select few types of stimuli, or so specialized in structure and function that they will only respond to some type of stimuli. So you can get very general that respond to lots of things, somewhat specific, and then very specialized to only respond to one specific type of stimuli. For example, the pain receptors of your skin and light receptors of your eyes are only specialized to receive stimuli in association with pain or light. Your eyes don't pick up, or the light receptors or the photoreceptors of your eyes don't pick up pain reception because they're so specialized they don't serve that function. And what you have here are just some examples of various sensory receptors. So any stimuli received from the sensory neurons is related to the central nervous system by action potential, and that action potential is called a sensation. Travels down sensory neurons, again, to the central nervous system for interpretation. How frequent an action potential reaches the central nervous system is directly correlated with the strength of the stimulus. So an increased frequency of stimuli or sensation results in an increase or an interpretation of a higher strength of the stimulus. For example, if it's just a mild pain, then you don't have a very frequent reception of action potentials. But if it's like a tremendous pain, you will have lots and lots of action potentials being relayed to the central nervous system. Once that sensation reaches the central nervous system, it's routed to the appropriate portion of your brain based on where that sensation is coming from and the type of sensation that is actually being picked up. So things like touch, pressure, pain, temperature, and taste are primarily sent to the sensory cortex, or the parietal lobe. Visual, auditory, and olfactory to their respective cortex. Remember, the visual cortex is located in the occipital, the auditory and the temporal, in addition to the olfactory and the temporal lobe of the brain. And refresh back to this particular diagram that kind of lays out where various cortex are located to receive and interpret different types of stimuli. Okay, and then let's go back to a reflex arc just to revisit that so you understand that we're mostly talking about this sensory receptor portion of a reflex arc and the types of things that pick up some stimuli and send those sensations down the sensory neuron to the central nervous system. Now, most sensory info is routed directly to the spinal cord or the brainstem for involuntary reflexes. You would be surprised, actually, how little stimuli actually reaches the cerebral cortex for conscious awareness. I mean, you could probably only think of a select few off the top of your head that you are constantly needing to be aware of, and things like pain or light or things like that. But in order to accommodate for this subconscious or involuntary reflexes, adaptation is involved. And adaptation is the reduction in sensitivity due to constant stimulus. It's basically when you get used to it. We try to demonstrate this in class with the pennies on top of your skin, where you put one penny on there and you kind of just ignore it for a little bit, and then what you realize is that your skin doesn't realize that the penny's there anymore until you increase the stimuli or change the stimuli, which is when we stack more pennies on top of it, and then you actually change the stimuli, which you notice it again. I use the example in class when girls put on a headband or something like that. They can feel it on their scalp, but then probably a half hour later, or even shorter than that, they don't even realize that it's there because of the adaptation, or they're getting used to the pressure that's there. We can take sensations and divide them into two general groups. You have the general senses, which is temperature, pain, touch, pressure, vibration, and proprioception. And we'll go over some of these a little bit more, particularly probably proprioception, that you guys don't really know what that is exactly. And special senses, which is olfaction, which is smell, gustation, which is taste, vision, balance, and hearing. What you're used to, however, is when people talk about senses, you're not used to incorporating all of these in terms of senses. What most people are usually associating senses, touch, taste, smell, sight, and sound. But here, we divide them into two groups that get a little bit more specific. Let's talk about the general senses first, in particular pain. Anything that is a pain receptor is called a nociceptor. They are basically comprised of free nerve endings. You know for a fact when these are stimulated, is something as simple as a paper cut can hurt tremendously. But they're very common on the superficial portions of the skin because your skin is the first barrier to maintaining homeostasis in the internal environment. So it is to our benefit to know when something barely interrupts that barrier to our internal environment. You will also have a lot of nociceptors in joint capsules, which is essentially like inside the joints of like your knees and your elbows and things like that. The periosteum of bones, which is the outer layering. When you break a bone, it hurts really bad, and actually in blood vessel walls. All of this is to indicate to you that there is something wrong with your environment and you're deterring from homeostasis, and it'll bring it to a conscious awareness and a subconscious awareness. Believe it or not, pain receptors are very uncommon in deep tissue or around visceral organs. So this probably has to do with why surgery can be so easy, but it also has to do with why we have to be put down or put out during surgery. Sorry. And if you look here, nociceptors or pain receptors, which are right here, are actually some of the most superficial or closer to the surface of the body pain receptors that are actually in the body. There's a couple different types of pain. You have fast pain, which are carried by myelinated neurons. These are things like when you get a deep cut, you want that signal sent to your brain or your central nervous system really, really fast. Myelinated neurons, remember, they allow active potentials to almost jump and skip sections of the neuron. You have slow pain, which are carried by unmyelinated neurons. This is that dull, constant aching pain that it hurts, but you can kind of push it to the back of your brain and not really notice a whole lot about it. You also have referred pain. This one to me is the most interesting. This is typically pain that's occurring in some kind of visceral organ or some kind of internal structure, but it's perceived in some kind of superficial region. The most common example that most students are taught about is actually the pain associated with a heart attack. Most of the time, heart attack pain is felt in the left arm, similar to this example right here. But what's actually occurring is they tell people if your left arm hurts and you're of age or physical stature or things like that where a heart attack can actually occur, they say left arm pain could be indicative of a heart attack even though your heart attack has nothing to do with your left arm. We still don't fully understand referred pain, but one of the biggest theories is a lot of the superficial nerves or pain receptor nerves that are associated with this region of the body actually converge in the same tract as some of possible pain receptors or not pain receptors, but nervous system receptors of the heart converge in the same track, and some of that signal can get confused when it reaches the central nervous system, and your brain actually thinks that it's possible that your arm hurts, which really and truly it is your heart that's hurting. There's like other kinds of referred pain. I find this one to be the most interesting, that if you have liver or gallbladder problems, your right upper shoulder hurts. That one blows me away. I don't really understand that one too much. And these are common ones, referred pain down in the abdominal regions